All right, good. Yeah, welcome to CoolToys TV, powered by Fan-to-Stage Technology. We're running a little bit behind today, had a delay for technical issues. But a few cool things to talk about. We talked about Apple Watches last week, and I'm still wearing the 10. It has survived another week, and as long as I rinse it, it seems to be doing okay. Which honestly is still a little disappointing, since you know, the 3 and the 7 work pretty damn good without rinsing and doing all this crazy stuff. So, you know, just showering at the beach at the end of the surf session tended to be enough. Now, got some cool things. Surround sound. This is one of my specialties, and one of my big loves is just movie making and the whole art of sound and everything. You can't really see it in here, but if you look online, I'll put some pictures up in the forum below this. But I'm in the studio, and so we use a whole bunch of different kinds of acoustics in here, right? And so this is part of surround sound. When you make it sound great, you do need to make sure the room is good. And the cool thing is that a closet with a lot of clothes hanging in it, right? It sounds nice and quiet. You can sing in there. It's like singing in the shower because it's all damp. There might still be a little bit of echo in here because I do have some blank wall space. We took down some acoustics behind me. We have some new ones that are made out of felt panels. You might recognize this photo. Something that I took a while back that's on, I don't know, Instagram, one of the websites, whatever. But the panels all got damaged in shipping. So the company's sending us new ones, but it is a really cool thing that you can go to Amazon and get these panels printed with any photo you want. So I've got an Eiffel Tower photo over here that my wife took. We got a Jeep from one of our early adventures in season 3. We got that photo. We did some work at a hotel. That photo's over here. And all of these are acoustic panels that help get rid of the echo in the room. And unfortunately, part of our technical issues, both of our microphones were totally dead. So you're listening to this through the camera microphone, which is about 10 feet away from me, and probably has a whole bunch of echo still. We have about 40% coverage in the ceiling. We've got the carpets on the floor the way you want it. And if I were on a regular mic, which I will pop out and put on here in just a minute to show you the difference. And this is an acoustics thing, what a room sounds like. And our ears and our brain do these amazing things, right? Psychoacoustics. So when we're in a room like this, we automatically turn off the echo. But you can hear it right now in the camera because the camera doesn't know any better. And when you're seeing something on a flat screen, your brain doesn't get the senses. It doesn't get all these little echoes like a bat and go, okay, well, ignore that one, ignore this one, and just talk away. And I can actually feel a little bit of reverb sitting here in this corner, although this is acoustic paneling here. These little slats, there's some felt behind it. And I've got this panel here, and the ceiling is partially covered. Look at that, being attacked by my own acoustics. But sound is an amazing thing, and the way we perceive sound is highly important. There's an old joke in the audio business. No highs, no lows, it must be Bose. However, anybody that owns a Bose system is probably pretty happy with it. And there's a reason for that. Bose has figured out what are called tickler frequencies, or wave areas. And so our brain focuses on these, and then it can kind of fill in the blanks for us, which is a really cool effect. And the other part is, with surround sound, we look for certain types of sound to be directional and certain types of sound to be non-directional. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is surround sound, because we've only got 2 years. So how is it in Jurassic Park I can hear the T-Rex behind me as it approaches? And it puts the hair in the back of my neck up, but I don't know why. We perceive it, and the surround editors did a absolutely fantastic job with that movie. It's one of my favorites to demonstrate to people when I had the home theater stores. And the other one that's really cool is Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? In the scene where the ladies are singing in the creek, and the camera does a spin, and their voices, if you close your eyes, their voices spin with it. And it's a really, really cool effect. Star Wars, the racing that young Anakin Skywalker does, there's a lot of great surround in there to demonstrate, and a lot of fun. And those are the kind of things I use to test a room. One of my favorite musical DVDs to watch is the Eagles, When Hell Freezes Over tour. That one has some outstanding audio in it. The engineers did a phenomenal job with that thing. And you know, you may know, if you have watched the show or followed us for a while, my wife and I are both SAG actors, so we have a screening room at home that is literally a screening room. It's 2 chairs and a giant screen, and that's where we sit and judge movies. When we get a movie, you know, let's say Dallas Buyers Club, and we want to see who the best male actor is. So we watch that and we say, wow, did Matthew McConaughey really earn best male actor? And yeah, he pulled it off for me and got my vote. I'll tell you that now, several years after. But every year we get a stack of DVDs, and in fact, a few years ago I was honored to be one of the selectors of who goes up for best male actor, which sounds fantastic, but what you get is a stack of DVDs about this tall, and it's every producer and every director that wants an award sends you their movie. And I gotta tell you, out of 415 I think I had to watch, easily 150, trash, don't even bother. No, bad acting, worse than this, you know, CoolToys TV, and which isn't acting or anything, so you can imagine it was worse than reality TV. And then there's another 150 that were like, it's okay, we can do this. And then there's the last group, where you're brought into the movie by the actors and the surround sound, and it all comes together. And unfortunately, the audio can really affect the actor's performance. There's some movies where the audio is just so poorly done, you can't follow the actor, you can't really enjoy their acting performance. You can't really get everything out of it. So one of my director buddies that you've seen on this show, Craig Railsback, he helped us with the French Rendezvous TV version. He considers audio to be the bane of his existence. It is really, really tough to get good audio and get it set up right and have it working well. And it's going to be interesting in a couple minutes here. I'm going to run out, grab the microphone base, throw it on, and see what happens to the audio here and see how you hear it and you perceive it. But that said, let's talk about a couple of different things, right? So when you have a TV in your house or you're going to watch something at home, media room, we call it a bunch of names, right? I call it mine a screening room because it's 2 seats and a giant screen. But it's a media room or an family room or an entertainment room, right? You have surround sound in there, but is it good? One of my friends is a Grammy award-winning artist who also is a Grammy judge, and he's got a Dolby Atmos system in his house. However, he's only got 1 row of a couch. Is that really the best solution? We'll talk about that in a little bit. So, and I love Dolby to death. They purchased SLS, which makes my favorite speakers, hands down. I wish I could have a set of R8s back here for the studio, or actually hanging up there on the wall on the other side so I can hear the audience as they cheer. You know, and if you're asking about the cheering, Fantastage, right? The technology that we're using, so I can hear fans cheering, and you might be able to hear some, but I don't know. There's not a lot going on right now, so there's only a couple people in the show, and they don't seem to be doing a lot. But, you know, surround sound, right? It changes the movie. We had the good fortune to be sitting next to Vin Diesel while he was filming a Fast and Furious in London. And, you know, we were in the middle of doing a bunch of homework. I'm working on my MBA program right now. At the time we were finishing our certificate in wine management. My wife and I both have gone off the deep end with wine. We're WSET level 2 and sommelier level 1. So we're doing our homework. Vin Diesel decided we weren't a threat, we weren't listening in, we weren't going to hound him for movie advice or any of this, obviously having no idea that my wife and I are both actors, and he starts talking about his day on set to his friend who's sitting there. And my wife instantly became a Fast and Furious fan. So, yeah, Fast and Furious is actually a great way to put that. So we have watched every single Fast and Furious movie now, all 13 I think, plus 2 trailers that were really well done. And I was, you know, in the religious moments of Hollywood, I filmed I was standing in for Aaron Eckhart on the movie The Incarnate when we shot an accident scene at the same place where Paul was killed in the Porsche, unfortunately. And, you know, Porsche is one of my favorite cars. And it was very weird to sit there. It was very, almost eerie to think about it, to look at that corner and to see what could have happened as we're recreating a completely different accident for this film. And it just happened to be a corner where things were filmed. So that's how it happened. So just so you can see what's going on, I have in my hand VantaStage. So there's me on the screen, YouTube Live, and I've got it here, and so I can clap and cheer and do all kinds of stuff, and I hear it up there. And I don't know that the camera microphones will pick it up. The way we have the studio set up today, you may not be able to hear a live audience, so that's a different thing. But we'll try to get that corrected for the next episode. Anyway, so let's talk about some things. Let's talk about if you're going to use a TV with just speakers, right? So we look at something like this. This is exactly the TV that I'm looking at here in the studio. You know, it's in. Somebody could come in here and we make this. This actually folds down into a bed. So this is a recording studio in my home that is really quiet. We live right near Long Beach Airport, on the coast, and as you know, I've got a surfing addiction. But you don't hear any jets going over. The microphone doesn't pick it up. The room is treated. We have the acoustics. It really is a nice thing. So I'm sure whoever my guests are, my niece mostly, and my buddy's kids, when they're sleeping in here, I bet they sleep like a log. However, they're probably also watching TV and playing video games, so that does happen. But, you know, it's a basic TV. Let's take a look at that again. You know, you're using the TV speakers. You're not going to get a lot of great surround. You're not, you know, going to get a lot out of the movie. To me, it's a lot like watching TV on this. You know, if I'm going to watch on my tablet on the airplane, you know, I can't really take a movie seriously. I'll watch Deadpool and some fun stuff on there where I'm not really watching for details and all that stuff. But if I want to watch a movie and I really want to dive into it, I really want to see all the detail, and the truth is, after seeing Deadpool in the airplane, I liked it so much I went back and watched it in the screening room and paid for it again. So it seemed a little ridiculous at the time, but it was, I think, well worth it. If you guys haven't seen Deadpool, check it out. But anyway, the little TV doesn't give you that sound. It doesn't give you that movie theater experience. It doesn't even give you everything that the director, the producer, the actors, and the engineers and the audio technicians put into it, the editors, right? So now if we look at a little bit better solution. So this is another room that we did, and this is you can see it's a larger screen. It's 65 inches, and it's got one of my favorite brands of speakers around it. It's got Atlantic Technologies. Now, with the speakers on the side and the bar at the bottom, right, if I'm in the middle of the screen talking, how is it possible to get the sound out of that? And the truth is, it's not. What happens is you have to hold the little microphone up and tune the room, and that's one of the things that I find most people don't ever bother to do, and they wonder why their surround sound isn't that great. It's just loud. So you take this little microphone, you set it right where you are, and even though the directions don't say to do this, I actually do it with me sitting there because I change the sound of the room. So does my wife. So if you normally watch with two people in a room, have two people sit there, do microphone position 1, microphone position 2. And it's going to go bloop, 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 bloop out of every speaker, and it's going to retune the room. It listens to every echo. It does all the things that camera cannot do. So, but it's also mimicking the things our hearing does, our brains do. Part of that psychoacoustics. So stupid tablets. When you do that, you tune the room, right? So I'm a Denon guy. I like Denon. Denon and Marantz merge, so Denon and Marantz receivers are fantastic for the money, I think. Yamaha makes really good stuff. There's a lot of great receivers out there. I wish I could tell you that you just want to look for the THX logo, because that's where I went to school, but THX was acquired many years ago by Creative Labs, and I will be honest, I have not kept up because Dolby has done such a great job with surround sound. That said, let's talk about surround sound, our brain. Again, 2 ears. It is possible, and some of you gamers that have the really good headsets like I do know that the surround is incredible. And again, it's psychoacoustics. Our brain is seeing something on the screen, and so it registers and it puts things in the right spot, and the computer puts the right amount in the right ear, the right amount in the left ear, puts a little delay, so it's a little farther this way or a little farther that way, based on these microsecond delays of the audio. And our brain processes it to match what's on the screen. Really amazing stuff. The gaming, I'm a Dirt 4 and a GT guy, and I play online all the time with people, and it just amazes me at how the sound is when I've got the headphones on, because I do race cars and I have been on the track, so I know what it really sounds like, and it's pretty close. It's different. It's very different, I'll tell you that, especially Dirt 4. It does not sound like what it's like to be in the car. It has a different kind of whir to it, but it, still very realistic and still very cool. And the same with GT. It gives me the inputs that I need, right, for the track, so I can hear when other cars are coming up on me and that kind of thing, and I can feel through the subwoofer. And I have a big Velodyne. I'm a big giant digital drive fan. Velodyne has been my one subwoofer for, as long as I've been selling systems. So I probably started selling my first surround sound and went through, it was before THX, so let's say, I'm embarrassed to tell you this, over 30 years ago. I have been selling Velodyne. I sold Velodyne speakers the entire time. I still have a Velodyne digital drive 15-inch sub in my little teeny screening room. And the one thing about a sub, people say, well, you get it sized on the room, and I disagree with that completely. You get it based on the sound you want, and you need 12 inches minimum to get deep, deep, true bass, especially if you like music. If you really want to crank it out, even in a small room, you get a DD15. You get a big digital drive 15-inch subwoofer. And when you put that microphone up to your nose, and it goes boop, 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 and it does its magic, the subwoofer tones itself down to fit the room. So you get a better range of acoustics, and you get it toned down for the room. And that's a really cool effect. So now, let's go back to surround for a second. We're looking at that TV. Let me show you this again just so you remind you what we're looking at. So see, you can see the 3 speakers around it. There's 2 more speakers behind it, and the computer has to adjust so that when I'm looking at the screen, the sound is coming from that person's voice, and it really can be that accurate. Now, when you go to a movie theater, that's not how it works, is it? Can you see the speakers? They are not off. They are off to the sides, and they are now with the Dolby Atmos. They're above you, which I find a little odd. In a giant room, it could be cool. However, it is. I don't think it's necessary because we have 2 ears, right? And we know that the room can listen to timing and those kind of things. However, in a big giant theater, because we don't know if there's going to be 100 people in there or 400 people, if it'll be full to capacity, that actually changes the sound. So by putting stuff in the ceiling, in the theater, Dolby is accounting or giving themselves some room for error to give a really great performance based on where people are in the room. And so, for those of you that have done anything with surround sound, you know that there's a whole bunch of different levels, right? There's 5.1, there's actually 3.1, so technically there's 2.0, which is stereo. That's the way it started in the 60s, right? I had big clip horns. They're as big as this bookcase back here. Little teeny speakers going through this wave chamber, made huge sound. Amazing, amazing, super efficient speakers. So 2.0, right? 2.1 is 2 with the subwoofer. The 0.1 is how many subwoofers you have, and it is, you can get an 11.3 now in some, and the 11 doesn't necessarily mean 11 speakers, because Dolby Atmos is 10 dot something normally, because its minimum design is 10. But if you go to a movie theater, you look around, how many, they can have 40 speakers, right? They can have 20 in the ceiling, 20 down the walls. So what is that, a 50 and then 3 subwoofers, so 50.3 system? We would still call it a 10. Because it's based on each individual seating area can only hear so many speakers, right? You can't hear the ones that are way, way in the back, because they're not designed that way. They're designed based on where you are. And 7, so now we go from 3.1, right, is the next thing. That's that TV. So let's look at this again real quick. So there's, if we look at just this TV and we say that there's no surround sound behind it, or there's no rear speakers, it's just these 3 plus a subwoofer, that would be a 3.1. And the next step is 5.1. And I will tell you that in my screening room, that's all I have is 5.1. And it smokes my buddy's Grammy, Grammy judging room with Dolby Atmos. And the reason is simple. Because I've only got 2 seats, and because he's only got 1 row. And his back up to the wall. We're actually out from the wall just a hair, which is what you want. If you get your head too close to the wall, you get what's called boundary effect. And when speakers are built into the wall, they actually have a little switch that says boundary effect to account for that. Now, when we built our screening rooms, we went a whole different way because, the reality is a projector, it's when we hung it from the ceiling like this, and if you look, you can see the ceiling's black. So that's all acoustic tiles, and just like in here in the studios, but this is only about 40% coverage. Over in that room, in the screening room, it's 100% covered. It is a totally tight ceiling because in that particular place you want it, so I want it, and this is overkill for 90% of the world, but I want it almost to the point where I can hear my heartbeat. So if you look at this picture again, you'll notice there's kind of brown behind me, and then there's a picture that's just below the projector, and there's some brown behind the projector. The brown is also an acoustic felt that's designed to get rid of the fan noise from the projector. And below that is a huge acoustic panel that's a photo of Angel Stadium. So my wife is an Angels fan. We have season tickets, and she took some photos there. So we have built this screening room into her little Angels trophy room. So it's signed bats to by Josh Hamilton. Thanks, Josh. And he and I met on an airplane once, and I just serendipitously 3 weeks later I won a bat that he had signed at an event. And then you can see that the speaker. Let's go back to that real quick because there's something in here. If you look at that picture, see the white in the ceiling? I have not painted the speaker on purpose because I want for people who are not super surround sound people to be able to go in there, sit and listen and see. The black does help with the light. It does make the colors better and the lighting better in the room because you don't get the reflection off the ceiling coming back to you. But the speakers aren't important enough for that. So, and where they're located, they're not really bothering anybody with light. And in fact, you can almost see in the photo there's a little spotlight just above the seat that aims at the back wall and reflects down the seat, so you could read, play with the remote, do those kind of things while you're doing it. Now, that comes to the fun part. Now I want to show you this. So here is the screen, and you see to the right that Get Loud. That is also an acoustic panel, but what I want you to notice is that there are no speakers. If you want to set up a screening room at your house without speakers visible, like a movie theater, the only way to go is a projector with a micro perf screen. This one, I want to say, and if I get it wrong, I apologize to all the manufacturers, but I think this one is an Elite Screens 4K micro perf, and there are other. We'll talk a little bit about 4K versus 1080p versus standard definition. Let's say 420. So our room is we normally watch 1080p because that's most stuff. And the reality is at the distance that we sit, so if you put your hands out like this, you make your pinkies go out, mine are a little jacked up from too many years of working, but if you put that out there, that's about the right thing. So 4K, you can get as close as 1.25 to 1, meaning if the screen is 6 feet wide, you can get as close as 1.25 times 6, so about 7.5 feet, from 7 3/4 feet from the screen. But what I will tell you, and you'll notice this in movie theaters, the middle spot in the movie theater is called the sweet spot. Anything forward of that, your eyes get tired because your head gets tired. You're moving all the time, trying to keep up with the action. If you're behind it, your visual acuity, unless you're better than 20/20, is losing some resolution. So it's a trade-off, right? So that's the number you want. So when you're buying a TV, measure from your nose to the wall, and if you divide by 1.5, that's a little bit better number. So if it's a 6 foot wide screen and you're 9 feet away, it's perfect, and that's exactly what we've got right there in that screening room. The screen is 110 inch diagonally, so it's about a little over 5 feet wide, close to 6 feet wide, and we sit about 9 feet from it. It is a perfect 4K 1080p room. So at 1080p to 4K, I have very good eyes, pilot eyes, 2015. I can see the difference slightly between the 1080 and the 4K. My wife cannot. She's 2025. Just barely off 2020, but that little bit of difference is all it makes. So when you see all this stuff about 4K, and now, you know, you can get a giant 8K TV at Costco, right? Or Best Buy, or wherever you want to go. I don't, and, you know, nobody's paying me, and I don't get endorsed. But the big question is, and this is right now from me to you, what do you want? Do you want the bigger screen, or do you want the most movie theater-like experience? Because honestly, a good projector and a good screener and good speakers are going to cost a whole lot more than an 85-inch TV at Costco with some pretty decent surround sound speakers. My personal thing, for everyday watching the baseball games and all that stuff, we have a 65-inch and a 75-inch screen, and then in the garage I've got a 50-ish, I don't know. Because you can get a 50-inch screen now for $180, really? And you know, so we stick it in the garage. But again, that room is 5.1 surround. Hiding behind this screen are 3 speakers. There's a left, a center, and a right, and it is tuned because the center is not exactly centered. So the computer has to adjust it by putting a little bit of the sound out of one of the side speakers so that I perceive it to be in the middle when the actor's talking in the middle. And really good surround editors, as that actor goes on the screen like this, you close your eyes, you can point right where that actor is on the screen doing this. It's really, really fun technology. It's nerding out, total geekdom on surround sound, but a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. Now, I'm going to run off. Give me 5 seconds. I'm going to go grab the microphone, see if we got enough, so you can hear the difference in how this room changes with a microphone versus a lavalier mic. And give me 2 seconds. Okay, now, I'm not even going to make this pretty. I'm just going to put this on. You can see here I've got my lav receiver. I put the little transmitter, or this is the transmitter. I put the receiver in the system. And then now, let's see, this is not active. Let me put this in the other microphone here. Says it's paired, and there we go. Okay, now hopefully I don't blow that out. Let's see how this looks. Checking on the microphone, on the meter. I'm going to tone this down quite a bit because it looks like I'm blowing you guys out. But this should be, even if it's only one channel, should be way clearer than the 2 channels on the mic. And it may be a mix, so this should be clear for a lot of things. But that's kind of what happens with the room and the audio, right? It's a whole different thing. And when they make movies, the actors usually have these microphones hiding somewhere on them because it's the best sound. And they do use boom microphones also to get a backup just in case. And I can hear that in a movie. I can tell the difference if the lav fails, but they shot the scene and they couldn't get it again because it's the golden light hour or it's some other magic scene. If you want to learn about that crazy stuff, watch The Studio with Seth. Not my favorite show, but they do cover a lot of stuff that actors go through that is crazy, and that's reality. And a lot of the headaches they have with lighting and sound and camera and all that. So anyway, this does change everything, right? So imagine that, flip it. That's your room. Your room is changing how you perceive the movies that you watch at home versus how you see them in the theater. And theater companies love it because it still makes the movie theater better. And it's really hard to get movie theater sound at home if you don't know what you're doing, or you don't bother to even put the microphone on the little thing and boop, 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 make the room tune up. So, my personal opinion, if you're going to build a dedicated movie room, TV room, sports room, whatever, spend the money, get a projector, and get the screen and have an installer, or watch some online videos and install it yourself. Mine is THX 5.1, and I'll go back to why I did that. Obviously, I learned at LucasArts at Skywalker Sound before that program shut down, and it is almost a religion to some people, and I will tell you, it was a lot of fun being there at LucasArts, and I learned a ton about surround sound. I also learned a ton about psychoacoustics. John Dahl is an amazing guy. At the time, they were looking at Lincoln cars, putting in THX systems, and I think I could talk about that now. I don't remember signing an NDA for that. And right now, I've got a Jeep Grand Cherokee with a Macintosh, or Macintosh, depending on how you want to say it. And I'll tell you, the surround in my Jeep is phenomenal. However, it is a car. It's not worth watching a movie in. It's not the same kind of surround. It's not the same type of audio, right? A car environment's very different than your home. So in your home, you can fix things, right? We can add acoustic paneling. We can do all kinds of stuff. And like I said, you can add a picture on the back wall behind your couch that's, a bunch of these acoustic panels, and they make a giant picture. And hopefully next time we come back, you guys are here. Please watch live and on Live Fan, and I will try to have everything on time instead of being a little delayed like we did today. And we'll have that panel up here. It's going to look like a window. It's fabulous. It really is a cool technique, and it's a cool structured thing. So let's talk about surround now. Okay, so 5.1, I've got single row, 2 speakers behind me, 3 in front of me. That alone is enough to give a 360 sound field all the way around my head, right? Because I've got speakers, they're actually in the ceiling, aiming behind me, and then the computer adapts the timing and the reflections off the wall into that acoustic panel, into my ears, so that what I hear is as if they're sitting right behind me, just like I had 5 surround at ear level, which is the perfect solution, is to have them mounted in the wall at ear level and about 2 feet behind me, but I don't have that space. So I'm less than 6 inches from the wall, and that back wall goes into another room that we didn't want the sound bouncing through the wall to the other side. So we went with a ceiling oops, wrong picture. Let's not do that one. That's the projector. Let's go back to medium TV small, projector. There it is, transition. So you see that white square up in the ceiling? That's the speaker. And the computer readapts it to the way our hearing works, and I hear it 360 surround. So if I'm watching Jurassic Park or Star Wars or Oh Brother Where Art Thou or the Eagles concert, that room is tight and it sounds fantastic. And one thing I want to remind you is if you put in acoustics, retune the room, because that dampening changes the echo. It changes everything about how we perceive sound. And you have to continuously, if you do it like I do, where I'm always updating and I'm always improving, every time I make a big change in the room, that microphone comes out and I retune the room. And then it has some other tools for doing that, but I really like this, the simple boop, 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 and be done and move on. Now, 7.1, I use, admittedly, in both of my rooms, the second out, the 7.0 part for outdoor speakers and speakers in the garage. So I can listen to music jamming down there, or I can listen to it outside. If you have 2 rows of seats, which I did have a theater at a previous house, where we had a warehouse down the street, so I didn't work from home as much. I didn't have a studio at home, so I took the room and doubled the size of it and made a real theater. And we had stock car racing parties in there, and it was 2 full rows of seats. Now we get into 7.1 because the people here and the people here are hearing something different if you're at 5.1, right? Because we only have one microphone, boop, boop, boop. So that back speaker is timed based on wherever I sit, which was the front row. Yeah, I was pretty rude most of the time. I sat in the front, let the guests sit in the back. But sometimes I let them have the front row because it was a better view. But 7.1 adds side speakers and then rears. So instead of being angled at the rear, you now have 2 straight back and 2 on the side, or 4, or 6. And for every, and think of it this way, for every in-between row you have, right, you add 1 set of side speakers. So if you have 2 rows of seats, there's 1 in between, 1 set of side speakers. If you have 3, you can have 2 sets of side speakers if you have 3 full rows. So if you have 4, then you'd have 3 side speakers. So in between each row, you have a speaker, and they're called dipoles, meaning one side's positive, one side's negative. They're putting out exactly backwards. So one's pushing, one's pulling. And what that does is it creates a null, so that the person in the forward row doesn't hear the speaker behind them. They only hear the speaker that they're supposed to hear, their surround speaker. And then there's some trickery going on from the super rears to make you think
you hear it at the same time as the person behind you. And if you have a 3-row theater, right, that surround speaker, the back is farther from the front person than the back person by quite a bit. And that microsecond delay, the psychoacoustics can be tweaked in those side speakers, and that's the magic of Dolby. That's where Dolby really makes its money, is when you get to 7.1 and above. THX did a nice job, and then Dolby just took it to a whole new level. And with Atmos in the ceiling, now you get to not worry about certain types of acoustic anomalies. And if you do build a big home theater with 3 rows, 10.1 Dolby Surround Atmos might be a consideration. It might be a way to go. It's really a cool thing in movie theaters, and it does give the engineer that extra level of error checking, in that you don't have to have the perfect room now in order to get perfect sound, or nearly perfect sound, which is really a cool thing. Just a ton of fun. So, that's funny. I have a computer popping up telling me that I can now add hand gestures to my camera, but that's not this camera. That's the Ozbot that I use for other stuff. So I have or Obzot camera. I have a camera that I can move around, and it follows me around the room when I do lectures and that kind of thing. And why it's popping up now on this screen, I have no idea. But that is technology for you, isn't it? Just kind of does its thing. AI, who knows? Anyway, so remember this. If you're building for you, 1 row of seats, even an L-shaped couch, 3-1, okay. 5-1, if you do it right, it's really good. It's all you need. It's going to be fabulous. If you need to do 2 rows of seats because you got a really big room, or sometimes if you got like a bar behind the seating area and you sit at the bar a lot, count that as 2 rows of seats. That might be a case for 7-1. If you can get the surround rear speakers on the other side of the bar, that's the trick, is getting the rear, what they call surround back, the back speakers in the correct position. That's the hardest part when you have a multi-layered room like that, or an open room where it's a screening room or media room and a bar pool room, right? That's the way mine is. We have our family room-ish thing, and then we have the pool table where the dining room was for the previous owners, because we don't have kids, we don't need a dining room, so we just have a big playroom. And and we only have 3-1 down there. Or technically 5-1, because we do have speakers way on the other side. But they're not tuned when you're playing pool. They do sound a little odd at that point, because that's not what they're designed for. It's not what that room's built for. So again, if you want to build a room that's just a multi-purpose, do everything, big screen TV at Costco, some good speakers, and you're golden. If you want to build a room that is a true dedicated, well, that's cool. My watch just connected to this show. I'll be danged. Neato. Didn't know watches could do that. Look at that. YouTube Live on my phone, on my watch, transferred from my phone somehow. That's cool. That's on our Fantastage app. I didn't know our app could do that. That's really cool. The trickery of it is, how do we perceive sound, right? And so with 5.1, you got a 360 environment, you get everything you need, and beautiful sound. So that's my pitch. If you're going to build a dedicated room, spend the money on a projector, go find a good screen. It's a MicroPerf 4K. Even if you don't use 4K, the screen's only a couple $100 extra to get the 4K MicroPerf, so you get a better quality screen. They'll have a black backing behind it, so the light doesn't go through the holes, bounce off a white wall, and come back. So you don't have to paint your wall white behind the screen. I've seen people do that. And there's actually a screen, there used to be a paint called Screen Goo that you just painted on the wall, and it worked beautifully if you had a smooth enough wall. I used it outdoors at a couple of places for people, and it was fantastic. I don't think the company exists, so I'll tell you what the secret is. It's titanium white with lamp black, and you just put a little bit in it to give it kind of a silverish look, and it does fabulous for outdoor if you want to put a projector outside. We have the World Series out in our front patio every year with a projector on the wall. It's great. So lots of cool stuff you get to do with this stuff. Surround sound, these are cool toys in my book. Maybe I'm geeking out a little bit too much, but man, I tell you, surround sound is just the way to bring home the movies. It really is worth, I think, the money to spend a little bit more to get surround speakers, to get a good TV. And now, I mean, TVs, come on, they're a bargain for a 65 or 85-inch screen. So not having a big screen, pretty much everybody can afford one in the United States, and most of the world now, because they are just dirt cheap to print out these flat panel OLEDs and LEDs. And you know, they're not, when I first started doing this, I remember having a discussion with Jim Dunlop. He wanted a 50-inch Fujitsu plasma, and the retail on that thing was somewhere in the neighborhood of $15,000. Can you imagine spending 15 grand on a TV today? I can't. You know, under $1,000, 80 inches, surround sound speakers, another $500, and you got a smoking system. So we live in a time that you can really have a cool home system. And that's really all I've got for today. I wanted to play with FantaStage. I know you guys, I see that there's only 2, and I'm one of them. There's one other person on there using the app, but I got to tell you, it is fun to hear from you guys. I can hear a little chatter back there from just me and the other person being online, and then if he claps, because I'm not really pressing buttons, but if I start pushing the buttons to clap, you know, let's see if I can get this up here for you. I'll get it right up to the camera, but you can see the buttons right there, and if I start pushing the clapping button, I start hearing applause here in the studio, and I don't have it up loud enough right now for you guys to hear it, but next time I will do that so you can join the show. I hope more of you will join with FantaStage. Get the Live Fan app, both on Google Play and on the Apple Store. And until next time, it's going to be a couple weeks. We're going to take a little spring break. We're going to go to Amsterdam and France. We're going to go back and see our friend Dominique Simon from the Rendezvous TV episode and see if he's got some cool cars. So hopefully I'll have some cool videos to show you next time when I get back from Europe. And until then, watch us on CoolToys TV. That's CoolToys.tv. And check us out here on YouTube and YouTube Live. So have a great day. Thanks for coming. Hope to see you next time. And I hope to hear from you with the FantaStage app.